We're back at Moscone West, RSAC 2026. You're watching theCUBE's coverage. I'm Dave Vellante, wall-to-wall coverage. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days. Myself, Christoph Bertrand, John Olczyk is also here. He's out getting all the notes on the show floor. Prashant Prahlad is here. He's the Senior Vice President, Head of Product at Capital One Software. You may not have heard of Capital One Software, you may have. Prashant, welcome to theCUBE. Thanks for coming on.
Good to be here, Dave.
So yeah, I mean, I've been watching you guys sort of build innovation internally, kind of point it externally, kind of the AWS model. But give us the update. What is Capital One Software for those who don't know?
Yeah, so Capital One Software is a separate line of business from Capital One that many people may know as the bank, right? So Capital One Software was created a little under 5 years ago to actually externalize some of the innovations we built in-house within Capital One. So a lot of people don't know, but Capital One is almost a tech company inside that happens to be a bank rather than a bank that happens to do technology. So we were first to the cloud, first to bring data into credit cards back when the company started. So tech is a very important part of what the company does. So a lot of the products that have been built in-house, we're starting to see customers like ourselves ask for it. So we're starting to externalize that with Capital One Software.
Wasn't one of your early products, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like a FinOps, I would call it, right? And
right.
You guys were using that internally to optimize. And then of course 2022 came around and everybody wanted to optimize their cloud spend.
Yeah.
Is that what got you started and how's that been going since?
Yeah, so the first product we put out was the warehousing optimization, specifically with Snowflake.
Right.
And that was adopted really well by customers. It helped them optimize how they use warehousing solutions, especially as data became such a big part of what a lot of industries do. So that product is called Slingshot. That's the name of the product. It's been growing well. We introduced support for other warehousing providers, started doing more than data management, more than warehouse optimization, including data management and so on. At RSA last year, we launched another product based on the success of the first one called Data Bolt that helps you secure your data and make it available for downstream analytics. Happy to talk more about that.
Well, okay, so I mean, everybody likes to talk about GPUs and models. We do too, but the real bottleneck in the enterprise is data. And
right.
So maybe we could start there. Proprietary data, it's the lifeblood of an organization. It's the ultimate differentiator for a company. That's what everybody wants to leverage. So yeah. What are your thoughts on that and how do you guys help customers take advantage of it?
I mean, data is the new currency. Yep. with AI, right? I mean, it's logically the thing that, I guess, before we had the internet, information was like siloed in many places and you have information asymmetry, but internet made that okay. I think that's what's going to happen with intelligence, right? You're going to have common intelligence everywhere, right, that you can get from the internet, but what differentiates a business long term is the things that are proprietary, that make your models and your AI much smarter than your competitors because common knowledge is going to be everywhere. So that proprietary data actually exists and companies have built that over several decades that are sitting somewhere because somebody is afraid that this data has sensitive information or his data is not being utilized correctly, or the fear of AI using this data to do something malicious. So for us, that's the opportunity, that's the key unlock we had with Databolt is how do we enable companies of the future when everything is going to change in the next 5 years, but the things that are remaining constant is data is going to be the differentiator. And how do we unlock that for our customers? That's really what was behind some of our products.
So of course we were at GTC last week, so we have this AI factory recency bias in our brains with the Kool-Aid injection that we got there.
We all have.
But of course it's exciting. But you basically have power and you have compute and you have data goes into the AI factory and intelligence comes out, but as you sort of alluded to, this kind of general intelligence that's trained on the internet, it's the proprietary data, that sensitive data that gets you competitive advantage. So what has to happen for enterprises to be able to take advantage of that, and what role do you play?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's a false choice presented when it comes to proprietary information or sensitive data, that either you protect it and create a data silo and make sure that only certain people have access to it, or you just allow AI to run loose with it, right? There's two extreme versions of that. What we've seen is, for the use cases that most of our customers are starting to sort of utilize today, you actually don't need to know the specifics of the sensitive information. You just need to have the data to do analytics. So for example, if Dave, you travel a lot, if you're flying to different parts of the country or the world and you're staying at different locations, my application may just need to know that this entity is doing that. I don't need to know that it's Dave. I don't need to know your address. I don't need to know your social security number. So what we've been doing at Capital One for a while is replacing any kind of sensitive information about an individual, PII, PCI. We have customers in healthcare replacing HIPAA information with this. We're replacing them with format-preserving tokens. It's called tokenization. And it's a form of encryption that, we can get into the technicalities of it, but it's safe. So what that allows you to do is your downstream application can do analytics. It can do all sorts of things it would do because there's a format-preserving token there without sort of exposing your private information to those applications. So think about the unlock there, right? Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with payment card industries, PCI. Now, PCI, credit card numbers, for example, if an application processes your credit card number, there's a whole PCI compliance that is subject to. And everything that application touches must be PCI compliant. So you start sort of going down the path of making sure everything that application uses then uses PCI compliance. So it's a chain that's pretty rigorous and well thought through.
Right.
But if I remove the personal information from that data, the application downstream, as long as it's not mathematically reversible, doesn't have to be subject to the same compliance regimes that it did before.
So to the extent that you can make it safe,
yes,
then that just expands the TAM. And
That's
when you
key.
say safe, is it, it's a little tangent, but is it quote, post-quantum safe?
actually, yeah, we actually have post-quantum tests on our algorithms. It's patented. It's post-quantum safe. Yes, it's a very common worry we have.
Yeah, we're starting to hear a little bit more about quantum at these events. Yeah. It's not a dominant theme, but it will be at some point.
Yeah, we just have to be one step ahead.
Yes, right.
Or many steps ahead.
I mean, you're taking a sort of a data-centric security approach. Walk us through your portfolio, your product portfolio. If you can give us, little direction in terms of, where you're trying to innovate, but lay out the portfolio for us today and anything new that's at RSAC.
Yeah, so as alluded to, our first product in our portfolio was this product called Slingshot.
Yep. That
allows you to optimize cost for warehousing and infrastructure as well. Our second product is Databolt, which is a tokenization product that allows you to tokenize sensitive information and allow third-party sharing, downstream use cases. We're seeing a lot of traction from regulated industries, financial services, of course, and healthcare and so on. And what we've been building since then is a platform that brings security, optimization, everything related to data management together. And this data management has many sort of features that we've been building out. We actually announced at RSA the ability to bring tokenization to unstructured data.
Okay.
So traditionally, when you have warehousing solutions and sort of big data, you're looking at a structured data warehouse that you're tokenizing social security numbers and so on. But 70% of the actual data that AI systems will benefit from that's proprietary happens to live in PDF files, emails, and transcripts and all these other things. So we've found an ability to scan, classify, and tokenize that information that allows downstream AI applications to start using them to become smarter.
And what was the catalyst for that? Was it generative AI that enabled that? Why has it been so difficult to get your arms around, enterprises get their arms around unstructured data? Why is that such a hard problem historically, and what was the sort of catalyst that enabled you to begin to solve this problem?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is this data has been locked in different locations, right? I think finding and scanning that data in a cost-effective manner has always been sort of tough because, think about it, you could scan a petabyte of data and find a few megabytes of useful information. So you've just wasted your capital on scanning something that was not useful. So intelligent ways of scanning that data are now possible that were not possible previously thanks to the LLM's advancements. So cost-effective scanning, sampling, statistical sampling, all of these things are one sort of aspect of it. And what we're also seeing is that internally, both Capital One and sort of the customers of these products are asking us, how do I bring in sort of the thing that will help me differentiate the most? I don't want to do what you can get off the internet with standard foundational models. I want to be able to use retrieval augmented generation RAG use cases or prompt engineering to actually go bring proprietary information. So I need to unlock that. Right now it's for experimentation, so I don't see this as a, hey, I'm not going to production tomorrow. But what's very obvious is without this data, you are not going to differentiate long term, and that pull has been driving us to get there.
What about dark data? You were talking earlier about this could be a massive unlock. There's all this dark data. What's that opportunity? What are the risks associated with that? Presumably your products are helping to mitigate those risks.
Yeah, one thing we found is customers who have protected data, dark data, they tend to have different set of data stacks to support them. So you have a different type of tooling, you have a whole other sort of stack that is different from anything you use sort of traditionally. And with something like tokenization or format preserving encryption even, you're basically saying, hey, I don't need to have these data silos and I don't need to have these different tools for different types of data. I can use the same tooling. It makes procurement easier. It's very economical. The key is, it has to obviously be safe to do so. So for us, that's the unlock that we've been working in with dark data.
Do open table formats play in that?
To a certain extent, we support different open table formats. Yes, they're part of what we do, but at the end of the day, we're largely driven by what our customers are asking for. Yep. And what we found is many of these customers, we are discovering with them. So it's deep engagements with them to figure out exactly where the data is, what we can do with them. And the products happen to be, one of the advantages that we find is because there's so much data we discover, customers don't want to be in the business of managing keys and rotating those keys to actually, make those sensitive data be available. They prefer that you use a vaultless technology, which is what tokenization is. There is no vault that has keys that you have to keep managing. We rotate the keys for you. So that problem is just taken away. And that has helped customers bring different data silos together for various analytics use cases.
Well, I mean, it's quite obvious that one of the main problems that you're addressing is there's always been this, yin and yang between protecting data and then allowing access to that data. The more access, the more risky. And so essentially you're removing that barrier. And how are your customers, there must be a lot of ways that they're monetizing this.
Yeah, so I've heard of, there's two aspects I've heard of this. One is called modernization of your data, and the subsequent part is monetization of the modern data.
Yeah, okay.
So customers are on different parts of that journey. And when I say modernization, just making, there are various data management tools that allow data to be presented in a way that downstream applications can use it. Now, at Capital One, we've been doing it for 10 years now. and it's very self-service. So if you were an application team, you would go and say, what are the data products I have to use? This is all data that's being presented to me. It's self-service, I can use it. So if you're an app team, you can get up and running super fast. Now, and I've seen many customers in that category. They've modernized their data stack. They have a data management portal that allows teams to self-service and use clean data. Now, not all customers are in that category. Customers are still in the process of moving data that exists in mainframes and things that it ain't broken, so why move that data to the cloud? Now, we are helping those customers move data into modern data warehouses, and then from that point on, when you start, when you've modernized, so to speak, that data, that's when you start doing chargeback for data that's being used, and then you start monetizing it, perhaps making it available externally, though I haven't seen that happen yet, but that could be in the future.
So I want to put a finer point on that. You mentioned the mainframes. Are you seeing customers now say, hey, I'm actually going to move more data into the cloud? I mean, obviously the cloud continues to grow. I mean, it's like everything's growing these days, but I talk to a lot of customers say, I want to bring the AI to the data. Yeah. I guess it goes both ways, but are you seeing any predominant trend, or?
Well, it goes both ways. So we have 4 key use cases we're seeing customers sort of bucket into. Right. One of them is I would like to modernize my data and move it to the rest of my cloud infrastructure, right? That could be in a data warehousing solution like Snowflake or Databricks. It could be AWS or one of the big hyperscalers. So customers are in the process of doing that. They've done most of the heavy lifting, but they still have these big tranches of data that are sitting in tools that they haven't yet moved. So we're seeing that as sort of one key use case. So the second one is I want to do analytics with that data. So the example I was mentioning, if you were an application team, you want to be able to use as much data as you can get for your application to perform well without being subject to all kinds of regulatory issues. So you basically say, I'm going to do downstream analytics and AI with that application, with that data. So that's the second use case they're trying to unlock. The third one is data sharing, right? Now, it's not uncommon that if I was a company and I had multiple vendors, there is some data sharing happening. And if you look at breaches of the past, I'm sure you'll see that most of it happens when the vendor is not subject to the same set of regulations that the owner of the data is, and somewhere in transit this data gets misplaced or gets lost or gets exploited. Third-party data sharing and internal data sharing has become a very, very interesting use case for us, and we're seeing a lot of customers move around that. But to answer your original question, migration to the cloud is still a big deal. And what we're also seeing is some customers have said, hey, I'm going to keep data where it is because of gravity reasons and move my applications closer to that data because it's just, they haven't either got on the cloud journey or they've said they've made a decision to maintain data centers on premise and they're building, specific storage solutions on premise. And we've seen customers do that, especially larger institutions.
Well, you remember, when the cloud first came out, it was so alluring because it was just so inexpensive relative to sort of the umbrella that traditional IT set. Things have balanced out somewhat. It's only taken 20,
but this
20
is
years.
this is a cycle, right? The pendulum swings one way and then comes back the other way, so it's a matter of time.
And you don't care where the data is. You can protect it at rest, in motion, at use, irrespective of the physical location, is that right, or?
Yeah, so customers have taken us there. So to your original question, obviously we have a control plane that lives as a SaaS, but the data plane where the data actually gets processed is with the customer, so we don't get into that. Now, some customers have said, hey, I want everything to be on premises because I have so much data that I don't want any part of it to be outside of my environment. So we have a self-hosted control plane solution for those customers where they manage everything on their own. It's the traditional, I don't know if I'm dating myself, but my first time I shipped software, I got a CD of the software I shipped on my desk, right?
Prashant, I had a floppy, so.
Yeah, well, I've used 5.25, not even 3.5, 5.25. So when so it is that we are actually shipping a golden image for those customers who want to actually deploy it on premise. Of course, it's a Kubernetes environment and it's a cluster and everything, but it's the same thing.
Those are the days when the marginal economics of software went down to the price of a CD-ROM.
Yeah, and you burn you have a bug in your software and you burn like these golden image on CDs and you have to spend a lot of money reburning them. I've done that.
So that's interesting. So your customers, pulled you that direction because Capital One very advanced early on getting into the cloud. You guys leaned in, and obviously your business benefited from that. What are some of the gotchas and the learnings that organizations should be aware of, kind of the do's and don'ts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen this from the other side. I used to be at AWS when I saw Capital One adopting the cloud early on. Actually, they were one of my customers of a product I launched. And I was always wondering, how are they at the sort of this leading edge of adopting cloud? It's a bank, right? You expect them to be a little bit more conservative and take their time. I think, what Capital One has done, which amazes me genuinely, is they're completely service-oriented architecture, right? So different, what Amazon would call two pizza teams exist to run a service. The same team that builds the software, ships the software. So from that perspective, it's been great. Now, the cloud has been evolving at pretty rapid rate, right, in the last decade. So what would happen is Capital One would adopt early services, and then Amazon would have the same services. So there was sort of this, should we build the thing we used, or should we just adopt the service that Amazon's doing and then build something else? And that decision point can sometimes be tricky for customers, so that's the gotcha. What I've seen happen at Capital One is that over time, we've gotten better at saying, hey, this is undifferentiated heavy lifting, we don't have to do it, we'd just much rather buy the service from a cloud provider and then focus our efforts on adding value somewhere else. And that's easy to say, hard to do decision.
Yeah, because you don't know at the time if it's a differentiator. It may feel that way, and in the market, especially now, the market changes every 3 months.
Yeah.
And what you thought was innovation, some LLM vendor's going to be doing it, and so it is a tricky proposition. So how do you filter that?
Yeah, I mean, in sort of first principles way of thinking about it is when everything around you is changing, and even the rate of change is accelerating, right? You have to bet on things that will remain constant. That you have to find your durable differentiation. That's why we're in the data business.
Yeah.
Data management, data cataloging, lineage, sensitive data, tokenization. This is the fuel that we know will need to power everything that's going to change ahead of us. So, if you apply sort of that foundational thinking of, you want to be the shovel in the gold rush, if you will, right? So that's kind of the mindset we've been applying in this. But I mean, at some point, you have to sort of go higher up stack, and we obviously want to do that based on what will differentiate us as a business.
Well, and Amazon actually taught, you mentioned two pizza teams, there's no compression algorithm for experience. I mean, there's so many, sayings, I mean, the leadership principles, the customer obsession, all of those were sort of taught to the industry. The industry's adopted them now, and now we're learning a new set of principles, driven by AI. Do you think that this sort of new data foundation that we've been talking about, essentially kind of becomes like zero trust, that it becomes fundamental to security teams?
If I were to wager a bet, I think it will be. There's just I would put my money on it, because there's just so much change around us right now that you know, information and intelligence asymmetry is like no longer a thing. Like everyone will have the same level of intelligence, everyone will have the same level of information. So data is going to be where I think every company is going to differentiate based on that.
12 months from now, what will you look back and say, okay, we were successful from a product roadmap or adoption? How are you going to measure that?
Well, I want customers to be coming here and being sort of raving fans of what we built. That would be the true testament. Leading up to that, I want to help customers unlock value. At the end of the day, there's just a lot of innovation that everyone wants to do, but they're not enabled to do it in these companies that we're working with. So we're in the enabling business. So I would feel fantastic if my products actually helped customers take, whatever they're building, their applications, their AI initiatives to that next level of production. I think to me that would be great. And then we're going to do it as sort of the data plumbers. We're going to bring data to those customers. We're going to make it available for their applications to use. We're going to make sure that it's safe for them to share it with third parties, so on and so forth.
That's always exciting for somebody who builds products, right? To see them adopted. There was an article, I don't know which publication had it, said the big thing in San Francisco is everybody's a builder. And what is that? But we know what builders look like, and so we've been watching them for years. So yeah, it's that adoption metric that gets you excited.
And you want to be a tool builder, right? At the end of the day, if human beings have become more productive because we have tools that make us more productive. They give you 10x productivity. AI is going to be a tool to make the next generation of builders. To make the AI better, we're in the business of building tools that make the AI better, so we're downstream from that.
Talk to me about your platform vision, however, right? I mean, as a head of product at Capital One, you're building out a platform. It started with this, a cost optimization tool, right? But now you're building a portfolio. Do you see that as becoming a platform? Is that your objective?
100%. Like, I mean, platforms, the term can mean many different things to different people.
Okay.
At the end of the day, our job is to empower innovation by unleashing data, right? So that mission means we have to do whatever customers need to get, to innovate safely using their data. And at the data management platform, there are various, the boxes you would draw to make it a platform would include things like lineage and scanning and classification and cost optimization and tokenization and et cetera, et cetera. Now you don't want to boil the ocean, but we certainly want to make sure that we're building this platform in a very deliberate way that is solving a very specific customer need.
Really appreciate you coming on theCUBE.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
Thanks, Prashant. All right.
Good to see you.
Okay, and thank you for watching. This is Dave Vellante for Christophe Bertrand and John Olczyk, the entire CUBE team here at RSAC 2026 in Moscone West. We'll be right back right after this short break.